I grew up in a quiet town outside Portland, Oregon, in a two-story blue house everyone thought looked peaceful from the outside. People loved to compliment my parents, such a disciplined family, so well-mannered, your kids are so respectful. If only they knew. In my family, there was one rule everyone obeyed without hesitation. We didn't even call it a rule, just how things work in this house. No one was allowed to express negative emotions. Not anger, not sadness, not frustration, not even disappointment. Anything unpleasant was labeled as disrespect, and disrespect was the worst sin you could commit in our home. When I was 8, I fell off my bike in the driveway and scraped my knee open. Blood ran down my shin, and the shock made my eyes sting. But before a tear could even fall, my mom snapped her fingers. "Stop. Don't make a scene. You're fine. You know better." I swallowed every ounce of pain and nodded because that's what a good kid did. I didn't understand that she wasn't comforting me, she was training me. My dad was even stricter. He had a habit of lowering his voice whenever he got angry. No shouting, no slamming doors, just quiet, cold disappointment that felt so much worse. If I cried, he would say, "Fix your face, Jonathan. We don't do that here." I learned to hold everything in, breathe shallow, blink fast, swallow hard. The world saw a calm, polite boy. Inside, I was always on edge, afraid that any emotion would betray me. At school, my teachers thought I was remarkably well-controlled. My friends thought I was chill, maybe even mature for my age. They didn't know it wasn't maturity, just conditioning. I thought this was normal. Every family had rules, right? Every kid had to follow them. Every parent wanted peace and good manners. It wasn't until I turned 16 that I realized something was wrong. That winter, a new girl transferred to our school, Ava Thompson. She was loud, expressive, always laughing, always talking with her hands. But she wasn't afraid to cry either. Once during English class, she teared up while presenting a poem about her grandmother. She apologized, but Mr. Harris told her it was okay, and the whole class agreed. But I didn't understand. Crying in public. With people watching without consequences, after school, Ava caught up to me outside the parking lot as I waited for my ride. My dad was late again, so I stood there, hands in my pockets, posture straight, face blank, my usual survival mode. "You're kind of hard to read," she said, studying my expression. "I guess," I replied. "You don't really react to anything. Are you always this calm?" That word again. I didn't answer. She smiled anyway. "Well, it's cool. You seem like someone people can trust." Before I could respond, my dad's car pulled up. He rolled down the window, his voice crisp. "Jonathan, get in." Ava waved at him. "Hi, Mr. Reed." He didn't wave back. He didn't smile. He just stared until she slowly lowered her hand. And when I got into the car, he didn't start driving right away. He looked at me and said, "You need to set better boundaries. That girl is too emotional." Too emotional. Just like everything else that didn't fit inside our tightly controlled world. That night, as I lay in bed, I replayed his words over and over. For the first time, something inside me pushed back. Why was emotion a problem? Why did every feeling have to be hidden? Why did expressing pain make you disrespectful? It felt like the walls of my home were closer than I ever realized, like I had been living inside a cage I thought was a room. I didn't have the courage to question anything out loud yet. But something had cracked. And once it cracked, it couldn't be fixed. The morning after Ava talked to me, everything in the house felt sharper than usual. The floorboards creaked louder, the kitchen clock ticked slower, and even the air smelled strict like brewed coffee and silence. Breakfast in my family wasn't a meal, it was a ritual. My mom placed plates down with perfect precision, scrambled eggs, toast fruit sliced into identical squares. My dad read the newspaper, turning pages so quietly it was almost eerie. No one talked unless spoken to, and every emotion, every single one, had to be locked away. But that morning, I couldn't stop thinking about what Ava had said. "You're kind of hard to read. Are you always this calm? Controlled, silent." I pushed my scrambled eggs around on the plate, trying to swallow the tightness in my throat. My dad finally looked up at me, eyes scanning like he was checking for a crack. "You're fidgeting," he said. "Something wrong?" My instinct answered before I did. "Shake your head, smile a little, pretend you're fine," but I didn't. For the first time, I told the truth. "I'm upset." The room went still. My mom froze mid-sip of coffee. My dad slowly lowered the newspaper as if I had just spoken a language he didn't understand. Upset about what? His tone wasn't curious, it was accusing. I felt my pulse in my throat. I had crossed a line, and we all knew it. "I don't know," I muttered. I feel weird today." "Weird is not an emotion," he snapped. "Be specific." My chest tightened. I said, "I'm upset." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. My mom set her mug down a little too hard. My dad's jaw tensed. "Jonathan," he said slowly, "we do not indulge in useless emotions in this house. You know that. Control yourself." His words hit harder than they should have, like a reminder that my feelings were a problem, a burden. A threat to the order of the house. I am controlling myself, I said barely above a whisper. Wrong answer. I knew it the moment the words left my mouth. My dad stood up, pushed his chair back against the tiled floor, and walked around the table with a calmness that made my skin crawl. He crouched beside me so his face was level with mine. Fix your attitude. My heart pounded, but something in me, some small unfamiliar part, refused to disappear this time. I just said I'm upset, I whispered. Why is that wrong? His expression didn't change. That made it worse. You're being dramatic, he said. This ends now. He stood up and went back to his chair, and breakfast continued as if nothing had happened. But my hands were shaking under the table. Not from fear, well, partly fear, but mostly from something new. Anger. Real anger. Not the explosive kind. The quiet, dangerous kind. The kind I had never allowed myself to feel. At school, I couldn't focus. Every time Ava talked, smiled, or laughed, I felt a strange tension in my chest, like she had accidentally pointed a flashlight into a dark corner of my house. After lunch, she found me sitting near the soccer field, staring at nothing. Are you okay? She asked. I hesitated. Telling the truth felt like stepping on thin ice. But I didn't want to go back to being unreadable and visible. My dad got mad this morning, I finally said. What for? For feeling something, I guess. She blinked at me. For feeling something, I nodded. Jonathan, that's not normal. Hearing the words out loud directly plainly felt like someone had cracked open a window in a suffocating room. But the relief didn't last long, because while we were talking, my phone buzzed. A text from my dad. Come straight home after school. We need to talk. A cold weight settled in my stomach. Ava saw my face pale. Everything okay? I shoved my phone back into my pocket. Yeah, I lied out of habit, but inside I knew the truth. This morning wasn't the end of the rule. It was the beginning of a war. The hallway felt too narrow as the final bell rang, like the walls were closing in with every step I took toward the exit. Students poured out of classrooms laughing, yelling, shoving each other playfully. Noise, chaos, emotion everywhere, and I walked through it like a ghost. My dad's text kept replaying in my mind. Come straight home after school. We need to talk. Those 6 words carried a weight anyone else might shrug off, but in my house they were a threat. Not the kind you could call the police for. The silent kind. The psychological kind. The kind you carried for years without realizing how heavy it was. Outside, the Oregon sky was gray thick with the promise of rain. Ava caught up to me right as I reached the parking lot. You sure you're okay? She asked again. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to tell her I had everything under control. But something about the way she looked at me direct, concerned, unafraid made lying feel like stepping back into a cage I was finally learning to see. I don't know, I admitted. She walked beside me for a moment, thinking, if you ever need someone to talk to, I'm around. Those words shouldn't have meant much, but for someone like me, someone trained to swallow everything, they were explosive. Thanks, I said, and I meant it. But as soon as I got into the back seat of my dad's SUV, the warmth of that moment evaporated. The car was cold, stiff, full of unspoken expectations. My dad didn't look at me. He just started driving. We didn't speak the entire ride home. Inside the house, the silence deepened. My mom was cooking dinner, but she didn't turn around when we walked in. She didn't need to. She could feel the tension like humidity in the air. Upstairs, my dad said. My feet were heavy as I climbed the carpeted steps. My room was exactly as I left it, neat, controlled, nothing out of place. Designed to look perfect. Designed to keep me perfect. My dad closed the door behind us. He stood by my desk, arms crossed, posture rigid. I stood near the window as if the gray sky could shield me from whatever was coming. Explain, he said. My mouth was dry. Explain what, your behavior this morning. I just said I was upset. That is not acceptable in this family. I felt my jaw tighten. Why? Why is it not acceptable? Everyone feels things. Not everyone, he snapped. Not people who want to be strong. Not people who want to be successful. Weakness is contagious, Jonathan. Weakness. There it was. The word he built our entire household around. I swallowed hard. Feeling something isn't weakness. His eyes sharpened. You are acting like a child. I am a child. The slap wasn't loud. It wasn't violent, but it was controlled, calculated. The kind of slap meant to startle more than hurt. The kind that said, stay in line. I didn't touch my cheek. I didn't look away. For the first time in my life, I held his stare, and that scared him. I saw it, the flicker of uncertainty. The way he stepped back just half an inch, the first crack in the armor he thought was indestructible. You will not talk back to me, he said quietly. You will not question me. You will not behave like one of those emotional, unstable kids. Ava's face flashed in my mind. Why not, I asked. He blinked. What? Why not be emotional? Why not talk about things? Why is everything about control? Because that's how the world works. No, I said, that's how you work. His expression froze cold and unreadable. Then he turned, walked to the door, and spoke without looking at me. You're grounded for a week. No phone, no friends, no outside influences. Outside influences. He meant Ava. He meant anyone who might show me another way to live. He left the room, closing the door behind him with a soft click that felt more final than any slam. I stood there breathing hard, adrenaline shaking through my hands. For 16 years, I thought silence was normal. I thought emotions were dangerous. I thought control was love. But standing there in my room, cheeks still tingling from his slap, I realized something crystal clear. This wasn't discipline. This wasn't guidance. This wasn't normal. It was emotional abuse. And for the first time in my life, I knew it. That night, I sat on my bed and stared at the dark window, thinking about Ava, about school, about a life where I could breathe. A life where feelings weren't crimes. I didn't know how yet. I didn't know when. But something inside me whispered that I wasn't going to live like this forever. The first day of being grounded felt like someone had pressed mute on my entire world. My phone was taken. My laptop gone. My door left open so my parents could hear everything, every breath, every shift, every sign of disobedience. My life shrank to the size of my room. Dinner was quiet. We ate like strangers who shared the same roof but nothing else. My mom moved around like a ghost, avoiding eye contact, her face blank and practiced. She knew better than to get involved. Or maybe she just didn't want to. That night, I lay in bed listening to the house breathe around me, the hum of the heater, the creak of settling wood, the soft footsteps from my parents' room. Everything familiar, everything controlled. But inside me, something was growing that I didn't recognize. Something restless, something angry, something alive. On the second day, Ava noticed my absence at school. She texted, called, even asked around, but of course I didn't know any of that yet. I only learned it later. On the third day, my dad woke me up at 6. Not with a gentle shake, not with a knock. He simply stood in my doorway and said, "Up." I sat up slowly. "Why, you're helping me in the garage today." I followed him down the stairs, the cold air of the garage wrapping around me like a warning. Tools hung neatly on the walls. Everything had its place, just like inside the house. He handed me a broom. "Start sweeping." I swept. He watched. Every time I paused to shift my grip or stretch my shoulders, he made a sound, a throat clear, a sigh, a tap of his foot, small reminders that even breathing had rules in his world. Around noon, he finally said, "This attitude you've had lately, it ends today." I kept sweeping. "What attitude? The disrespect." "I haven't disrespected anyone." He stepped closer. "You questioned me." I turned toward him. "Because you hurt me." For a moment, he didn't move, didn't speak. His jaw tightened and a muscle twitched near his eye. "That was discipline," he said. "If you reacted like an adult, you wouldn't have needed it." "I'm 16. Then act 16. I am acting 16. You're treating me like I'm a problem you need to fix." He stared at me with a look that made my stomach drop. "You are being influenced," he said, "by someone at school. Ava. Of course, that girl is emotional, unstable. You're letting her poison your mind. She's not poisoning anything I said. She's just normal." My dad's voice hardened. "Do not talk back to me." "I'm not talking back." I said, the words coming out sharper than I intended. "I'm telling you the truth." He stepped forward so fast I flinched. His face was inches from mine, breath-cold eyes burning. "You will not, John." My mom's voice cut through the air like a knife. She stood in the doorway holding a folded basket of laundry, eyes wide and terrified. She wasn't concerned, for Mesh was afraid of the tension, afraid of the consequences. "What's going on?" she asked softly. My dad didn't look away from me. "We're having a conversation." My heart hammered. I knew what conversation meant in our house. I tightened my grip on the broom handle. "We're done talking." That snapped his attention. "Excuse me," I said, "we're done." I repeated every word, shaking but real. "I'm not sweeping anymore, and I'm not pretending nothing's wrong." My mom's breath caught. My dad froze. Then slowly he extended his hand. "Give me the broom." I didn't move. I couldn't. If I handed it to him, I lost. If I refused God, I didn't know what would happen. "Jonathan," he said, low and dangerous, "put it in my hand." My mom took a step forward. "Honey, maybe." "Stay out of this, Karen." I felt my pulse in my throat, my fingertips, my ribs. The broom handle was slick with sweat. Then knock, knock. We all turned. Someone was at the front door. The knocking came again, louder this time. Urgent. My dad's jaw clenched. "Who on earth'll get it?" my mom said quickly, fleeing the garage before he could stop her. My dad and I stayed frozen, locked in a silent standoff. Footsteps. The creak of the front door opening. A pause. Then my mom's voice startled. "Oh, hello. Can I help you?" A familiar voice answered, "Hi, Mrs. Reed, I'm Ava. I'm here to check on Jonathan." The broom nearly slipped from my hands. Ava was in my house. My dad's face went blank, flat, cold, lethal. "This ends now," he whispered. But he didn't mean the grounding. He didn't mean the sweeping. He meant her. He meant me. And for the first time in my life, I realized my father wasn't just strict. He was dangerous. Ava stood in the doorway, clutching her backpack like a shield. Her eyes widened as she took in my dad's expression, then flicked toward me. I felt my chest tighten, half relief, half terror. "Hi, Mr. Reed," she said carefully. I just wanted to see if Jonathan was okay." My dad's jaw tightened, his hands curled into fists at his sides. For a moment I thought he might explode, but instead he spoke quietly, dangerously calm. "He's fine," he said. "Go home." Ava shook her head. "I'm not leaving. Hez my friend. Hesh is upset. You can't just ignore it." My heart raced. Her boldness shocked me. I'd never seen anyone talk to him like that. Most people, including my mom, kept silent, and even I, his own son, rarely dared speak up. "You don't understand," he said. "This is none of your business. Everything that happens to him is my business," she shot back. "You can't just control him, control his emotions, control his life. That's not normal. That's abuse." The word hit the air between us like a hammer. My dad's eyes narrowed, his breathing steady but sharp. "Abuse," he repeated, almost tasting the word. "Do you know what you're saying?" "I know exactly what I'm saying," she said. "And if you don't see it, maybe hell needs someone to show him before it's too late." I froze. My stomach lurched. For the first time, someone outside my family had named it. The thing I couldn't name. My dad started, but Ava stepped closer. "I don't mean to fight," she said. I can't watch you break him. You're destroying him slowly. You think control is love. It isn't. You're teaching fear." My dad's face went pale, almost rigid. I had never seen him lose composure. I had never seen him falter. "Leave," he said at last, his voice low and dangerous. "No," Ava said. "Not until he decides. He can't even speak up in his own house. Not to you, not to anyone. He's trapped. And you." She looked right at him, eyes blazing, "You know it." I felt the room shift. The air grew heavier, tighter, yet somehow freer at the same time. Ava's presence was a challenge, a spark. And I realized that if I stayed silent, nothing would ever change. My dad's hand moved almost imperceptibly toward the garage door. Threat, punishment. I didn't know. My pulse hammered. Then Ava did something unexpected. She stepped closer to me, her voice soft but firm. "Jonathan, you don't have to let him control you anymore." I swallowed, my throat dry. "I don't know how." "You'll learn," she said. "Step by step. You're stronger than you think." My dad took a step toward her, and suddenly I knew, standing there saying nothing, I was powerless. But standing there choosing to speak even quietly, I had a spark of power I'd never felt. He glared at both of us, his control slipping. Not shattered, but threatened. "You will both leave this garage," he said, voice shaking slightly now, "or I will make sure you regret it." Ava didn't move. I didn't move. Something inside me snapped. Years of fear, years of silence, years of pretending. Everything swelled into one small, clear decision. I dropped the broom. It hit the concrete with a loud thunk echoing across the garage. "I'm done," I said. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Ava's eyes widened slightly, but in a good way. My dad froze. "I'm not pretending anymore. I'm not obeying this rule. I'm not hiding how I feel. I'm done." The silence was deafening. My dad's lips pressed into a thin line. He opened his mouth to speak, closed it again. The muscles in his jaw flexed. I had never seen him hesitate before. And in that pause, I realized the war had begun. For a long moment, no one moved. My dad stared at me as if he didn't recognize who I was. Maybe in his mind, I really wasn't his son in that moment, not the obedient, quiet kid he was used to. Ava stood beside me, breathing hard, her fingers trembling just slightly. I could tell she was scared, but she didn't step back. My dad finally spoke. A single sharp sentence. "Go to your room." His voice wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was worse, it was cold, stripped of emotion, the kind of voice that promised consequences later. My instinct kicked in fear, familiarity, survival. For years, going to my room had been the safest option, the only option. But after everything that had just happened, the words felt different. Like a command he suddenly wasn't sure I'd follow anymore. I swallowed, my knees felt weak, and for the first time in my life I didn't move. Ava whispered, "Jonathan." I shook my head. "No," I said softly. "I want to stay." My dad's forehead tightened, confusion flickering through his eyes before anger surged to replace it. "You want to stay," he repeated. "Yes." "Why?" "Because I'm tired," I said. "Tired of pretending everything is okay." He took one step closer. Ava instinctively stepped in front of me. That shocked him more than anything else so far. A teenage girl, a guest, standing between him and his son. His voice lowered even more. "Ava, you need to leave my house. Now." "No," she replied barely above a whisper. "Not if you're going to hurt him." He blinked. Hurt him. Asking a kid to erase his emotions every day, she said, that is hurting him. A muscle in my dad's face twitched. He turned toward me again. "Did you tell her lies about me?" The accusation hit me harder than the anger had. I shook my head. "I didn't tell her anything," I said. "She figured it out." Ava added quietly, "Because I've been there." That made both of us look at her. She didn't explain. Not yet. But her eyes, soft, steady, haunted, said enough. My dad exhaled long and slow, as if trying to keep control. "You two need to leave the garage. Right now." This time I decided to listen. Not because he ordered it, but because I didn't want Ava in the middle of whatever would come next. I nodded at her and we slowly walked inside. My dad didn't follow. He stayed in the garage, the door cracked open behind him, staring at the cement floor like he was trying to piece together a puzzle that suddenly had missing pieces. Inside, the house felt colder than usual, quieter, almost hollow. Ava sat on the edge of the living room couch, hands clasped together. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I don't know," I whispered. He didn't yell. "That's not always a good sign," she said gently. "Silence can be worse." We sat there for a minute, then she took a breath. "Jonathan, I need to tell you something." I turned toward her. Her eyes were glossy but determined. "The reason I recognized what he's doing to you," she said, "is because someone did the same thing to me." My chest tightened. She kept her hands folded tightly as if keeping them from shaking. "It took me years to understand what was happening," she continued. "Years to realize that being told your emotions are wrong or dramatic or inconvenient is emotional abuse." The word felt less explosive this time. More real. Like a diagnosis. "You're not crazy," she said softly. "You're not weak. You're not overreacting. This isn't normal. It was never normal." I breathed out slowly. "I don't know what to do next," I admitted. "You don't have to know," she said. "You just need to keep going. One step at a time." And then the garage door creaked open. Footsteps. Heavy. Controlled. My dad stepped inside, face unreadable. He stood in the doorway, staring at both of us. Not speaking, not yelling, not moving, just watching, calculating. Ava leaned closer. "Remember," she whispered, "you're not alone now. Not anymore." My dad finally opened his mouth. And in the calmest voice I'd ever heard from him, he said, "Jonathan, we need to talk. Alone." The air froze. Ava grabbed my sleeve. The moment my dad closed the door behind us, the air in the room changed. It wasn't tense like before it was charged. Heavy. Silent except for the faint hum of the heater. He looked at me, his eyes sharp, calculating, searching for the obedient boy he had always controlled. But that boy wasn't there anymore. "Jonathan," he began slowly, "what just happened in the garage that is unacceptable? You are my son. You will follow the rules of this house. Do you understand?" I swallowed. My throat was tight. But instead of nodding like I usually did, I looked him straight in the eyes. "No," I said firmly. His face twitched just slightly and I saw a flicker of disbelief. "No," he repeated. "No. I'm done pretending that obeying every rule, swallowing every feeling, hiding every thought makes me happy. It doesn't. It only hurts me." He leaned back against the counter, folding his arms. "You are exaggerating. You are being dramatic. You have no idea how hard it is to raise a child in this world. Control is necessary, discipline is necessary, love is necessary, and you are rejecting all of it." I shook my head. "No, love doesn't require control. Discipline doesn't mean crushing someone's feelings. I'm not rejecting you, I'm rejecting what's been done to me in your name." His eyes narrowed. The silence stretched. I could almost feel the gears turning in his head as he processed what I said. He hadn't expected this. The obedient boy had never spoken up like this. "You think you're right," he said finally, voice low. "You think you know better than me." "I think I know myself," I said. "And I know that what's happening in this house, it's not normal. It's emotional abuse." The words hung in the air, heavy and sharp. For the first time, my dad didn't respond immediately. He just stared. The tension was thick enough to choke on. He began, then stopped. "You will regret this." Maybe, I admitted. "But I can't keep living like this. I won't." He moved closer, towering over me. "You are still my son. You will obey me." "I will respect you," I said, "but I will not obey fear. I will not hide my feelings. I will not pretend I don't exist." The silence that followed was unbearable. Then slowly my dad turned away, pacing the kitchen, fists clenched. He muttered under his breath words I couldn't quite make out, but the anger and frustration radiated off him in waves. I felt something shift in me to a mixture of fear, adrenaline, and a strange newfound power. I wasn't breaking. I was awakening. "I don't want to fight," he said finally, his voice quieter. "But you're making it impossible." "I'm not making it impossible," I said. "I'm making it real. Me. This. Everything I've been hiding, and I need you to see it, even if it hurts you." He stopped pacing, staring at me like I had just grown up in front of him. The lines on his face tightened, but there was a pause, a hesitation I had never seen before. For the first time in my life, I realized that my words had power, that my truth could pierce the armor of his control. He finally turned away toward the window, his back rigid. "This isn't over," he said. "No," I whispered, heart racing. "It's just beginning." And in that moment, I knew the path forward would be long and terrifying. But I also knew that I was no longer alone, and that for the first time I was willing to fight for myself. When I stepped out of the kitchen, Ava was waiting for me at the bottom of the stairs. She stood up the moment she saw my face. Her eyes scanned me, searching for bruises, anger, panic. Something, anything. "What happened?" she whispered. I swallowed hard. I felt drained, like my soul had been wrung out and hung to dry. "He didn't yell," I said quietly. "He didn't scream. He just listened. And then he shut down." Ava's eyebrows pulled together. "That's sometimes worse." "Yeah," I breathed. "It feels worse." She motioned for me to sit on the couch. When I did, she sat beside me, leaving a small space between us, giving me room to breathe. I didn't realize how much I needed that small gesture. "What did he say?" she asked. "That I'm being dramatic," I said. "That control is love. That I'm rejecting him." Ava's jaw tightened. "Classic emotional manipulation. They make their behavior your fault." I nodded. I told him it was abuse. Ava blinked, surprised. "You said the word, yeah. And what did he do?" He froze. Then he said, "I'd regret it." Ava sighed. "That's how people react when their power is threatened. They lash out or withdraw. And your dad, he withdraws. That's his weapon." I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "I don't know what happens now. You don't have to know," she said gently. "But you do need a plan." Before I could answer, I heard footsteps upstairs, slow, heavy, unsteady. The kind that meant my dad was thinking. Dangerous thinking. Ava looked up too. Her voice dropped. "You should stay with me tonight." My stomach twisted. "I can't," I said. "You can," she insisted. "And you should. What would I even tell him?" She held my gaze steady and calm. The truth. But the truth was the last thing my father ever wanted from me. Before I could respond, my dad came down the stairs. He didn't look angry. He didn't look sad. He didn't look anything. He was blank, emotionless, which was worse than anything else he could have been. His eyes landed on Ava, cold, disapproving, then on me, calculating. "I want your friend to go home now," he said. "It's late." Ava stood up slowly. "Mr. Reed." He cut her off. "Now." His tone wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. She looked at me one last time. "Text me," she mouthed. I nodded. She grabbed her backpack and walked toward the door, but my dad didn't move aside to let her pass. She had to walk around him, shrinking herself to fit through the narrow space he left. He didn't say goodbye. He didn't thank her for coming. He didn't even look at her. He just stared at me. When the door closed behind her, he said quietly, "We need boundaries." I couldn't tell if it was a threat or a warning. He walked past me toward the living room window and pulled the blinds shut, one slat at a time, methodically, like he needed something to control in that moment. Then he turned around, his voice soft, steady, frighteningly calm. "You embarrassed this family today." I felt my throat tighten. "Dad?" He raised a hand. "Not to hit me, just to silence me. You spoke to me with disrespect," he continued. "You allowed someone else to disrespect me in my own home. And you used a dangerous word, a word that can destroy families, abuse." He said it like it was poison. My pulse thudded in my ears. "You will not use that word again," he said. "Do you understand?" I stared at him. My chest felt like it was being crushed. "No," I said softly. His eyes snapped up. "What?" "No," I repeated. "I won't pretend anymore. Not for you, not for anyone." He took one slow step toward me. "Jonathan," he said, "are you sure you want to do this?" I didn't know. I was terrified. But I didn't look away. Yes. For the first time, real emotion cracked across his face. Anger, fear, confusion, all tangled together. He opened his mouth, but before he could speak, a sharp knock echoed at the door. Once, twice, firm. We both turned. My dad's expression shifted instantly from anger to something colder. "Who is that?" he whispered. I didn't know, but part of me hoped and part of me feared that it might be Ava, or worse, someone she sent, someone who knew the word I had spoken, someone who knew what was happening inside this house. The knock came again, louder, harder. The third knock was louder than the first two, sharp, firm, and impossible to ignore. My dad and I both stood frozen in the living room, staring at the front door like it was something alive. He was the first to move. He straightened his back, smoothed the front of his shirt, and inhaled deeply. When he turned to look at me, all the cracks, the anger, the confusion, the fear were gone. His face was a mask again, cold, controlled, the version of him the world always saw. "Stay here," he said. "Don't say a word." He walked toward the door, each step measured and slow. I could feel the tension radiating off him, sharp enough to cut skin. The knocking stopped. Silence. My dad reached for the doorknob and opened the door just a crack wide enough for him to look through, but not enough for anyone outside to see me. "Yes," he said, voice polite, calm, warm in a way I'd never heard used on me. Then I heard a voice, a familiar one. "Mr. Reed, it's Ava's mom." My stomach dropped so fast it felt like I was falling. My dad's hand tightened on the doorframe. "Good evening," he said smoothly. "Is something wrong?" Her answer cut straight through the quiet. "Yes." Ava came home shaking, and she told me she was worried about Jonathan. She said she saw things. She said she's scared he isn't safe here. The muscles in my dad's jaw flexed. He didn't open the door any wider. "She misunderstood," he replied. "Teenagers can be dramatic." The way he said dramatic made my blood run cold. It was how he talked about me whenever I had a real feeling. But Ava's mom didn't sound convinced. "Could I speak to Jonathan?" she asked. "Just briefly, I want to hear from him." My dad's voice shifted, still calm but tighter. "Jonathan is fine. He's resting. There's no need." I stood up. My dad's head whipped toward me instantly, like he sensed the movement. His eyes were sharp, warning me without a single word. But something stronger pushed me forward. Something new. Something I wasn't used to feeling, courage built from the truth someone finally believed in. I stepped into view, just enough that Ava's mom could see me through the narrow opening in the door. Her face softened immediately. "Jonathan, honey, are you okay?" My dad didn't move to block me, but he didn't step aside either. He was waiting to see what I would say, to see whether the obedient version of me would return. But that kid was gone. "Not really," I said. My voice was quiet but steady. "I'm not okay." My dad's jaw snapped so tight I heard something click. Ava's mom's expression shifted from concern to something sharper, urgent, protective. "Do you want to come outside for a moment?" My dad stepped in quickly. "He's not going anywhere. This is my son, and this is my house, Dad," I said softly. He stopped mid-sentence. I took a small breath, a shaky one, and I said the first sentence that truly terrified me. "I want to go outside." His eyes widened, not with rage, but with disbelief. "Jonathan," he whispered, "think about what you're doing." "I am," I said. He looked at me like I had betrayed him, like the floor had opened beneath him. For a moment, I almost felt guilty, almost slipped back into the boy who lived to keep him calm. But I remembered Ava's voice, "You're not alone anymore." So I stepped past him, hand brushing against the doorframe. My dad didn't grab me. He didn't yell. He just watched. When I stepped onto the porch, the air felt different, cool, sharp, real. Ava's mom put a gentle hand on my arm. "Sweetheart, is there anything you need to tell me?" I hesitated. Everything in me was trembling. My father stood in the doorway behind me, silent and rigid. I looked at her and whispered the truth. "I don't feel safe here." Her eyes filled with shock and something like anger, but not at me. Behind me, I felt my dad react, a sharp inhale, the start of a word he didn't speak. Ava's mom straightened. "Jonathan," she said firmly, "you're coming with me." My dad stepped forward instantly. "He absolutely is not." "I'm not asking," she snapped. "And if you try to stop me, I will call the police." My dad froze. Not because of fear, he hated fear, but because he hated outside attention even more. In that frozen second, I stepped fully off the porch. One step, then another. Each one felt like splitting the earth in half. I heard my father's voice behind me, low, strained, breaking at the edges. "Jonathan, don't do this." But I didn't stop. I reached the car door. Ava's mom opened it for me. I climbed in. And when I looked back at the house for the first time in my life, my dad wasn't the one who looked powerful. He looked small, like someone watching control slip through his fingers, grain by grain. As the car door closed, he took one step forward and whispered a single line through the crack between the door and the frame. "Jonathan, you are making the biggest mistake of your life." But as the car pulled away, I whispered back to myself, "No, this is the first choice I've ever made." The car hummed quietly as we drove through the dark streets of Portland. The streetlights flickered past, illuminating the tension in my chest. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Ava's mom glanced at me once, then back at the road, letting the silence fill the space between us. For the first time in 16 years, I felt like I could breathe. Not fully, not yet, but just a little. Just enough to feel the pulse of my own thoughts, my own emotions, my own existence. Ava's mom parked in front of her house, a small, warm place with lights glowing in every window. She turned to me. "You're safe here," she said softly. "And from now on, you'll decide what that means." I nodded, my throat tight. "I don't know what to do next." "That's okay," she said. "You don't have to know everything right now. Just know you deserve to feel. You deserve to speak. You deserve to be you." Ava ran to the car, sliding into the seat beside me. She smiled, but it was the kind of smile that carried both relief and fear. "You made it," she said quietly. "You actually made it." I let out a shaky laugh. I guess I did. We sat there for a moment, the quiet humming of the engine the only sound. I thought of my dad standing behind me in the shadows of the house he had controlled for years. A part of me still feared him. His anger, his manipulation, the weight of 16 years, but another part of me felt something I'd never allowed myself to feel before: hope. Hope that I could be more than his rules. Hope that I could have a life where emotions weren't a crime. Hope that I could finally define myself not through his control, but through my own choices. When we got inside Ava's house, she grabbed my hand. "You can stay here tonight," she said. "Tomorrow we make a plan. A real one." I nodded. I didn't know what the plan would be. Maybe I'd stay with her mom for a few days. Maybe I'd go to a counselor. Maybe I'd speak to someone who understood the rules I'd been forced to live under and how they had broken me. But one thing I knew for certain: I would never pretend again. That night, as I lay in a bed that felt like a stranger's, but somehow safe, I thought of my dad. I thought of the house, the rules, the control, and I forgave myself. I forgave myself for all the times I stayed silent. I forgave myself for all the times I swallowed pain. I forgave myself for being human. For the first time, I didn't feel like a prisoner in my own body. I closed my eyes, and for the first time, I felt free. The war wasn't over. He was still my father, and our relationship would take years to untangle. But I had won the most important battle. I had taken back my own voice. And in that voice I found my life. The world outside was messy and loud and terrifying. But for the first time, I was ready to face it. Not as the boy who obeyed, not as the boy who hid, not as the boy who feared everything he felt, but as Jonathan, whole, free, real.